and welcome to Contractor Outlook newscast from the coffee shops. The Contractor Outlook newscast is all about bringing experts from the field who are doing things maybe a little bit outside the construction trade, but that totally affect the construction trade and bring great data and information to you. And our guest today is perfect when we're talking about data and what you need to know out there as a contractor as you are building your business, diversifying, and growing it. I am so happy to welcome Allison Hadley with American Home Shield to Contractor Outlook newscast. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning, Heidi. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I am so excited. This kind of stuff is so much fun and so interesting to really understand what is going in the minds of the consumers. And that's what we need in the construction trades, is to really understand our audience. And you are going to bring that information. So let's start out with an introduction. If you could introduce yourself, tell us what you do at American Home Shield, and tell us a little bit about American Home Shield too.
Sure thing. So American Home Shield is one of the nation's leading home warranty providers, and they commissioned me to conduct independent consumer research. You know, with the home services field, there's a lot of different things that consumers have in mind, whether they're first-time home buyers who don't quite know how to fix the plumbing, or whether they're buying a fixer-upper that might have some issues that are waiting. They always want to know what consumers are thinking. And so in that capacity, I get to conduct independent research, oftentimes homeowner surveys or homeowner and renter surveys. I analyze the data. I present it along themes ranging from everything to DIY stressors in each state to what we're talking about today, which is trends in green homes.
Yes. There is so much buzz out there about green homes. No one's doing them anymore. No one cares. I don't believe that. And I'm excited for you to share the results that it's not true. It is a growing market, just kind of adapting as everything does. So why don't you start by sharing a bit about that study on green homes and homeowner trends, kind of some of the things you saw.
So let's set the scene, right? So I surveyed about 1,000 homeowners nationwide, and I asked them a variety of questions having to do with environmentalism, sustainability, what they wanted out of their homes, what they were prioritizing if they were making green home improvements. And it turns out that green home improvements are actually quite popular. What I did find interesting, though, overall, is that the popularity comes from a motivation to save as much money as possible on utilities. You know, if you think about it, electric bills, they increase every year. Gas is skyrocketing right now. Anyone who has a much more environmentally friendly, or really energy efficiency is the talking point here, right? Yeah. If you want an energy efficient home or appliance, that's going to save you money in the long run, even if the initial investment upfront is a little bit more cost prohibitive. But that being said, like 2 in 3 homeowners said that they're worried about the effect of climate change on their bills, and 38% already say it's affected their quality of life, primarily in the form of higher utility bills. So when we think about that, I don't think it's a surprise that 77% of homeowners believe green homes will hold their value better than traditional homes, particularly as climate change continues to affect how we live in this country. And 82% think that the U.S. government should encourage green home construction. So there's clear demand here. And we see that as it follows. I also surveyed those who were looking to buy homes within the next year, and they said that they would be willing to pay an average of $73,827 more for an environmentally friendly, energy efficient green home than what they would pay for a more traditional home. Of those who were buying, about half were planning on buying a green home, 44%. And they definitely just generally see it as a good long-term investment, both for themselves and their utility savings, but generally as an ongoing property value increase as well.
I'm just kind of guessing people don't really understand that. Don't really see that, especially when you think about all the production building that's going on and everything that's out there, understanding. And, I'm going to ask some kind of out questions here, but Allison, I'm really interested too in this study. When you're doing demographics, Were the demographics in the study across generations? Do you have any idea on age, or because I'm wondering how much of this is being driven by millennials who are getting ready to purchase homes?
Well, so we surveyed homeowners across the nation, and I believe in this one we had an age range from 20 to 75 with an average age of about 48. When we consider that millennials and Gen Zers don't own homes at rates as high as Gen Xers and Boomers, that sort of makes sense and it follows through. In terms of gender distribution, it was about half and half. We had half men, half women to really get an equalized approach. I do think that if we look at the fact that about 58% of those that we surveyed live in the suburbs, 25% in rural locations, and just 17% live in urban settings, like the majority of the respondents here are people who are thinking about, your average single family home in a suburb. Everything is car driven, so they're going to be conscious of gas consumption in ways that maybe urban home dwellers might not have to worry about. And I think, with that, while there's obviously a little bit more anxiety among younger generations, as a millennial myself, I remember the PSAs with the 6-pack plastic things that you had to cut before you threw out, lest the penguins get their heads stuck in it.
Exactly.
And I think that maybe that climate consciousness might be a little bit more prevalent among the younger respondents, but I do think it's an anxiety that's felt across the board, if not in general concern for the environment, but certainly in terms of just energy efficiency and saving on utilities. When we asked people why they were making home improvements towards energy efficiency and sustainability, 68% said that they were concerned about their environmental impact and sustainability, but 80% prioritize cost savings on utilities.
Right.
So while concern for the environment is definitely a factor, and it's still a major one, like over 2/3 mentioned that, it's certainly not as prevalent and top of mind as just saving on those utility bills.
Well, and we have so much happening out there right now when we start wanting to talk about energy costs, and from data centers to gas prices to just overall changes that are continually happening governmentally that are causing utility prices to go up or down. It really makes sense that energy efficiency homes are going to continue. When we're talking about, let's talk a little bit about green homes, and just so we kind of set the stage for our all the contractors out there. When you're talking about green homes, insulation, reflectivity, solar, kind of talk to us about that.
Sure thing. So, we asked homeowners what kind of green improvements they were making, right? And here are the most popular ones. 68% were installing at least one energy efficient appliance. In many ways, this is the most easily affordable for the average Joe, right? Like if you're buying just a washing machine, that's a lot different than overhauling your entire home to be LEED certified, right? 46% only have energy efficient appliances. So again, still relatively accessible, but definitely a step up in the commitment to really trying to get energy efficiency to the fore. About 54% have solar panels, which is another relatively easy installation. If you live in a sunny place, why not?
Right.
30% have green landscaping. And when I say that, I mean, perhaps it might be rewilding the lawns. It might be, instead of a traditional grass lawn, it could be more rock and sand, depending upon where you're living. It could be having more efficient irrigation techniques. It can be a lot of different things. I had to kind of do a catch-all in my survey to really get everything. And then 26% have rain barrels. In addition, of the homeowners I had surveyed, 1 in 10 have green architecture. So from the bones of the home, right? Or they're actually LEED certified. And what's interesting is about 12% pay little to no utilities. So if we consider our electric bills these days, right? And I actually recently conducted a survey all about utility bills in itself. So I'm going to take a small moment to digress here, if that's okay with you. So 88% of my respondents in this utility survey said that their bills have gone up, and about 1 in 3 Americans are struggling to pay electricity bills. 49% are even going so far as to say they're overwhelmed by their utilities, right? And for those that are living near data centers, it's even worse. 94% said that their electric bill went up. And when I pulled them on their average electric bill, it was about $68 higher than the national average. So clearly, there is a huge jump, right, in just electric bills, oil bills. I'm sure gas bills are going to keep going up as well. And I think with that, thinking about ways to save money on utilities is always going to be top of mind for homeowners, because while they can't control property taxes really, and while they can't control a lot of other things, what they can control is how environmentally efficient their homes are. And so I think that is really a huge thing. Of the homeowners who live in a green home, pretty much no one regrets it. Everyone says it's worth it. It's clear that tax credits and things like that have gone a long way to motivate people to actually make these improvements. When I conducted the survey, which was in, I want to say late November, early December of 2025, 1 in 5 were still planning on doing a green home improvement before December 31st, 2025 to get those Inflation Reduction Act tax credits. Others had to cancel their projects once those tax credits went away because it was no longer cost effective for them. That was about 1 in 10. Another 35% reduced the scope, but there's still demand here, right? They want to see tax credits, encouragement from the government somehow to basically make their homes a little bit more affordable for them.
And this utility survey that you just did, what were the dates on that?
So this survey was published on February 13th, and I believe I conducted the survey, I want to say in early to mid-January of this year. Okay. So it's pretty recent, right? It's before gas prices really started skyrocketing, but it is when people across the nation were starting to feel the effects of AI data centers a little bit more profoundly. And, from that, 57% are worried about the financial sustainability of these rate hikes that they say year over year. I would say that 34% are already worried about affording electricity this summer. Consumers reported from 2025 to 2026 an average electric bill increase of 11%. Wow. And by either bringing in solar, obviously energy efficiency, on those different things, they can start combating that 11% raise or increase in utilities by hopefully, and I'm sorry, you need to say that because I was wow, you say that one more time. How many what percentage pay no utility fees? Amongst the green homeowners, 12% pay little to no utilities.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing when you think about that. And it really shows it's a proof of concept that this works. And especially, and we know that behavior is changed because of pain, right? So the pain of cost. And so even though you did your utility survey in January, now with the gas prices, that's going to even change more. And it's interesting, Allison, because I think back, and I've talked to a lot of people in Texas. This is more anecdotal, but we had a coffee conversations on this with folks from ABC Supply, talking about the fact that Texas is continuing to invest in solar on the residential home space because of trusting the grid. And they want to have the ability to be able to protect their homes no matter what. And so solar has continued to increase even without the incentive. So it really is around this, either the threat to the home or the threat to, the costs and expenses that is driving behavior, but it's behavior that's really kind of helping the overall.
Absolutely. And I think, when you look at behaviors and what homeowners are willing to exchange, if it means that they can have a more environmentally friendly home, I asked all homeowners, those who own green homes, those that don't, would they rather have a, bigger, more traditional, less environmentally energy efficient home, or would they rather have a smaller, greener home? And 63% said that they'd rather have a smaller, greener home. So that goes to show you that I think, maybe the era of the McMansion might be starting to come to a close. And instead, American, once those of us, especially in Gen Z and millennial cohorts, can actually afford to buy a home, we want to have something that'll definitely keep its long-term value, be resilient to climate change, because for a lot of us, the starter home is the forever home,
Exactly. And I have to tell you, as a Gen Xer, I'm very happy with my small energy efficient home. I'm just like, I think you're seeing people downsizing too. So you have the generation coming in and buying who are looking at smaller. In fact, in my family, we had they bought a new home, very energy efficient, very small. The yard, and I thought that was really interesting when you were talking about the landscaping too. The landscaping was very energy efficient and wild, or I think there's a dry-scaped. That's probably a better way to say than wild. So to see that on both ends, right? To see that on the generations that are coming into home buying and home ownership, and then the Gen Xers who are downsizing into smaller, more energy efficient, it's really going to drive this market for contractors.
No, absolutely. And, not to reference a third study, but also in January, I conducted a moving forecast just to kind of see how Americans were planning on moving around the country. And of those who were moving, which was about 2 in 5, 41%, 1 in 4 were downsizing their homes. And a lot of them were doing so to prioritize affordability. So again, we have this idea that people are maybe not looking for these large homes anymore, but instead are really trying to focus on smaller, energy efficient, accessible homes.
Yeah. And, this is just a total side thing here, but I also wonder how much COVID tended to affect that also. People want to be outside more. They want to, with our outdoor coffee shop, we're seeing a lot of people spending more money on the outside. So energy efficiency inside, energy efficiency outside, but more of a living space. And that's driving, you'll probably have a study on that too, I'm sure. Because Allison,
it's actually coming up. I just got the approval to do that concept in a few months. So it's coming.
Well, you're coming back then.
Absolutely.
I love it. That is so interesting. Okay, let's talk a little bit from the contractor standpoint. So this data, they have this data. And so as contractors are looking, and this is going to go everywhere from remodelers to builders to even our exterior contractors who are visiting with their homeowners, and definitely our outdoor living contractors, right? Who are looking at landscaping, pool, spa, all that kind of stuff.
I wanted to work with a supplier partner I respect.
I wanted a partner who respected me.
We needed a partner with employees who care as much as we do.
We needed a partner who values relationships.
I wanted a partner that would help me grow my business.
We needed a partner that would help us succeed.
SRS Distribution delivers more than building products. SRS delivers customer success.
But using this data to talk to their customers. And it may be as simple as energy efficiency of the insulation in the walls. It could be, all these different things. But, and I know you're the expert on data, but kind of talk about using that data to really help homeowners understand what's going on and contractors to really be selling and promoting products that are fitting these numbers.
So what I would say is just looking at this data, right? If there's one thing we can take away from this is that the key to selling energy efficiency is to stress how much it will save the consumer, right? It's not necessarily like, yes, it's good for the environment. Yes, it'll maybe mitigate the effects of climate change, but it will specifically mitigate it in the sense that it's going to drive down the utilities for the homeowner. I think a secondary selling point, particularly for contractors that are building green homes, is that 77% of homeowners think green homes will hold better value than traditional homes as climate change continues, right? So not only do you have the short-term savings of utility bills while you get to live in your house and pay considerably less than the average person, you then, when you eventually put your home on the market, you can look forward to a much higher selling point. And I think like that is really the important thing to keep in mind. Many homeowners are looking to make an investment both for themselves to live, but also as something that they might eventually be able to sell. And I think like understanding the investment potential in sustainability is huge. I think secondarily, like looking at the fact that many homeowners want green homes, but consider price to be a barrier. I think considering that, but also thinking about the fact that most homeowners would prefer a smaller, greener home than a larger, more traditional home is another signpost that maybe, look at building homes that are a little bit smaller than the average square footage than you might see. But if you make it price accessible and sustainable, that's probably another great way to get a lot more interest.
Yeah, you bring so many thoughts to my mind, but I'm thinking of a builder that we know in New Mexico who basically that's all they do. They focus on lots and building small, energy efficient, green homes, and they sell like that. And I mean, but they're small, and they actually can do more homes, developing more homes every year, and also know that they're going to sell faster, right? Because of all those things, utility costs, everything that goes along with that. I do want to talk a little bit because it 100%, it makes 100% sense that utility bills and the cost savings of green homes is going to drive things. It feels like there's also, and I'd like to see if you have any data on this, is that people who are associating with green homes, the homeowners or people who are looking at them, also think of better health and well-being, mental health, physical health, all those kind of things. What did you see there?
So we asked folks, what their primary motivations were for either purchasing a green home writ large or making green improvements to their homes. And I do think it's interesting that of the people who say that they have a green home, which was about 26% of those that we surveyed, most of them actually made green improvements after they bought their home. So there's also this motivation, right? But I think like the biggest thing that I took away was when I asked them their primary motivations for these home improvements. We already talked about utilities. We already talked about like environmental impact and sustainability. The third most popular choice was 42% said that it was for their personal health and well-being. And you can see this from, maybe you have a really efficient HVAC filter that like keeps the air a little bit cleaner on the inside of the home. Right. I know a lot of like green architectures really utilize light and air in innovative ways that can also, I live in Chicago. I miss the sun. I'm sure if I had a green home that, utilized light a little bit more efficiently, I might, be a little less susceptible to depression, And I think like things like that are maybe not top of mind when we say green home construction, but it really does reflect a whole lifestyle change.
It does. Daylighting is so important. And we talk a lot about daylighting here at the coffee shops because, the use of windows, the use of skylights, it not only does it help from an energy efficiency, when you use the right kind, but it also is going to just lighten the mood. I mean, to your point, it makes such a difference for the tenants or the homeowners who are able to get that sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention the reduced financial stress from not having to pay so much in utilities every month. Right.
You don't need to have your lights on. I mean, you think about those kind of things. It's there's so much that comes from that. So I want to just kind of revisit just a little bit. I loved this stat that you said earlier, and that I think it's really important for contractors to be thinking about as they are what products they're selling, how they're selling them, and it's going to go across the board, whether it's roofing, siding, outdoor, indoor, is that homeowners, you said, are willing to spend $73,800 more. I think I have that right. For a green home or for green home portions, energy efficiency and stuff like that. Talk a little bit more about that. That's a big number. When you were looking at buying a home, I realized, but if you think about it, if you're looking at a $300,000 home and you're willing to spend $375,000, that's a big lift and something contractors should be thinking about.
Absolutely. So of my core population of 1,000 respondents, right, about 13% said that they were planning on buying a home in the next year. So while I had my home buyers, I wanted to really poll them and ask them what they thought about green homes on the market, things like that. So of those who are planning on buying a home sometime in this lovely year, 2026, 56% are buying with climate change in mind, right? So they're already thinking about it. They're being very intentional. 44% are trying to buy a green home. 61% are willing to pay more for a green home, and that's where the $73,827 figure comes from, right? And I think, like, you know, they're right in that 87% think that green homes cost more than a typical home, and this is what the survey data reflects. But again, I think it also shows that they're willing to invest. You know, $74,000 can go by real quick when you're saving thousands every year on utilities alone, not to mention housing prices tend to increase year over year, right? So like people are really trying to make investments. They're trying to invest in their own future. They're trying to invest in like a cheaper utility profile. You know, among the top motivations, 37% want to be self-sufficient from the grid, right?
That's me.
Yeah, one day.
One day.
But, you know, and like 29% are investing in green home improvements for the increase in home value. So again, they all see that there's a really good ROI on environmentally friendly improvements.
I love it. Wow. I have to tell you, Allison, I think this is incredibly interesting. I love it. And for everyone listening out there, we have these studies. Allison has a directory in the Speakers Bureau of Roofers Coffee Shop and actually all the coffee shops across the board. And you will be able to find this data, these reports and surveys in there. I say use them. And one of the things I'm going to put out there too, as something for contractors to think about, is take this information and talk to your manufacturers. Talk to the product and services of what you're using, what you're selling to your homeowners or what you're building with, and ask them what they have that is energy efficient, what is green, and how you can show the utility cost savings. That is such a great thing to lead with. Of here you are. I know the solar folks are already doing that. They already have that kind of down, but there's just so much more out there that you can work with your manufacturers about. So I really recommend that and kind of look through that, these reports, and also working with all the folks who work with you in your business. Allison, I'm really interested in, and you just said it, you just got approval for outdoor living. What are some of the other reports out there that contractors might be interested in, or something, the ones that you have coming up that they should watch out for?
Sure thing. So in addition to the utility survey that I just mentioned that really shows that Americans are stressed about their utility bills, I also have a recent moving forecast where I poll 1,000 Americans as to whether they're planning on moving or not. That's both renters and homeowners. Mm-hmm. I also have a DIY stressors by state. So this is a little bit more for the home improvement set than it might be for home builders, but I look at Google search volume for classic home improvement problems that people run into, and it'll range from radon to clogs and leaks to things like that, right? And just kind of analyze it on a state-by-state basis. I also have a relatively recent study that examines how homeowners feel about the process of selling a home, because if you think about it, right, there's so much literature out there on how to buy a home for the first time, but what about those first-time sellers? Yeah. And so it goes pretty deeply into what sort of improvements they have to make in order to put their homes on the market, what the cost profile looks like for that, and also, you know, what their cost anxieties are.
Yeah. Wow. Really interesting. And everybody watch for outdoor living coming in the future. Yeah.
Coming sometime in the future.
Where can contractors tell us a little bit about where they go with American Home Shield to get this information, how they can kind of stay track with you? I know we're going to have it on our site, but I'd like them to be able to get to you directly.
Absolutely. So if you go to American Home Shield's website, which is ahs.com, and you go over to their blog section, you'll see every study I've conducted for them over the last few years. And it will range from anything having to do with home building, home construction, to home improvement, to DIY, to even real estate trends. So definitely spend some quality time on AHS's blog and, enjoy the data. It's a rich data set.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so great for your business and to really on the planning. What are homeowners looking for? Whether it's energy efficient roofing, solar, siding, outdoor, indoor, you name it. This is really the place to kind of get that data that you need for your sales team and for your planning for your business. So, Allison, thank you so much for your time today. I've learned so much. I love it. Thank you.
Heidi, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Let's go. And thank you all for listening. Please check out Allison's directory in the speaker bureau of all the coffee shops platforms. And also check out all of our Contractor Outlook newscasts. You can find them under the RLW navigation. Be sure to subscribe and set those notifications so you don't miss a single episode. We'll be seeing you next time on Contractor Outlook Newscast.